Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here with you in Atlanta. JJ's on vacation. Wayne, our producer, is in Memphis, Tennessee. Wayne, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I talked about that Formula One driver racing in the NASCAR race last weekend, and wouldn't you believe it? That Joker got in a crash and finished almost last place in that race. He crashed like in the first couple of laps of that race, so it really didn't get to see much of what he could do.
All right. Hey, everybody, just let everybody know you can find us all on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. You can get a hold of us all at ATL Prime Sports, JJ at JJ Get You One, Wayne at RWY Jr., and myself at Quarter Todd. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We're going to talk Falcons preseason football last night versus the Jets. We're also going to talk about the Braves taking 3 of 4 from the Mets and 2 out of 3 from the Astros. That's the first time in a Braves history that the Braves have taken back-to-back series from teams that are above 30 games, above 500. So they made some history there. They also won last night against Pittsburgh, currently 3 games behind New York in the NL East. In about 10 minutes, Tim Brando of Fox Sports will join us. We will talk college football and college basketball with one of the nation's best broadcasters and our favorite here on ATL Prime Sports. So anyhow, Wayne, let's go ahead and talk some Falcons preseason football against the Jets last night. What stood out to me was the downfield passing game, even though the Falcons mainly had their starters out there. They didn't have Patterson out there. First play of the ball game, Mariota went deep to their star tight end down the sideline, down the far sideline, hit him for a big play, hit Pitts for a big play, and that seemed to jumpstart the offense. And not only was Mariota successful, but Desmond Ridder came in behind him. The Jets on the first drive of the game had 6 of 11 starters in, and then I think after that they had 4 or 5 in, and then eventually each team went to all of the reserves. But what I noticed, Wayne, was the deep passing game, throwing the football on first down, downfield to try to loosen up the defense. Mariota hasn't started a game, an NFL game, since 2019. So with Tennessee, so this was a really, regular season game. Anyhow, this was really a good start for him and a good start for the offense.
Yeah, it was. I was excited to see that first possession they had. They went right down the field, and even though they didn't get a touchdown, Young Wei Koo came out and did a fantastic job. I think he was 3 of 3 for field goals in that game, and I think he's a fantastic kicker. And I don't miss the other Matt at all at this point.
Well, he's a Pro Bowl kicker. He's one of the best ones in the game. So the good news there, but the bad news is there were a lot of penalties that stalled drives. They had a penalty, what was it, right on the 1-yard line that pushed them back.
Yeah.
So that hurt. They had a penalty in the first drive, which hurt them. That set them, had to settle for a field goal. But I'll tell you what, each quarterback really looked really good. What was Mariota? 6 of 10, 132 yards. That's 13.2 yards a catch.
Right.
For a touchdown. Ridder was 10 of 13, 143 yards, averaging about 11 yards. It was really good to see the quarterbacks play that way, because I don't know, they really didn't run the football all that well this week against the Jets. They did better against Detroit. I was hoping they would run the football letter. I know the stats showed that ran for over 100 yards, but the quarterback was a good part of that. So, hopefully we'll see here in the third preseason game coming up, which is the final game. You'll see the starters probably play at least the half. Hopefully you will see Atlanta be able to run the football. That's something they're going to have to do to keep the pressure off Mariota, who is going to be the opening day starter. He did nothing wrong in that game to make the coaching staff think this is not our guy.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, the first half was really great for Atlanta, but you talked about the penalties, and some of the biggest penalties I think came during the second half and was against the defense. They had a lot of penalties that practically handed the ball to New York Jets and some really good field position, and they capitalized on one of them there towards the end of the game.
Sure did. And the second half was so different, obviously, in the first half of that football game with the Falcons. They had the third string quarterback in there, and he turned the football over, and the Jets turned it into a touchdown. And those things happen in preseason games. To me, the score really doesn't matter. It's how well your starters play, and you want to see guys that are in a backup situation trying to make the club play well. I know a guy to switch the other side of the ball, D. Alford.
Yeah,
Spalding High School here in the state of Georgia. He's from Griffin. And, he came from the CFL, won the Grey Cup last year in 2021. Wayne, this kid played himself to me right on the roster. I
yeah,
mean, I thought he was the hardest player on the defensive side of the ball.
yeah. I can't take that away from him at all. And you know, I, like I said, the first half of the game was great, and I was unaware until after the game that the Jets had actually didn't play any starters at all the entire game, and their coach is looking really well up there, and I think, in my opinion, I would like to see the Jets be the dominant team in that area, above the Giants and above the Patriots at some
Well,
point.
they did start some guys. 6 of 11 defensive players I mentioned earlier did start on that first drive for New York, so it was good for Atlanta to move the ball against the Jets in that situation. They did a really good job moving the football. And we mentioned it, the downfield passing game to me is something that they can really work on, and if they can ever just run the ball enough to keep the defense honest, offensively, they should be fine. But back to the defensive side of the ball and D. Alford. I mean, wow. The stats show he made 2 tackles, but he played so hard. He's the one that caused that interception that
Yeah,
Tez Tabor got.
yeah,
He's the one that helped cause that turnover. And I don't know how the coaches are not going to put D. Alford on this football team, Wayne. If the rest of the guys took a look at D. Alford's film, I mean, wow, this is how a player should, especially one that's trying to make the club and establish himself. But this is the way the player, everyone should be playing all the time.
yeah.
I thought he stood out.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is passing versus rushing yardage, particularly one player, and I think we had talked about this before and may have tweeted some about it, is guess which player had the lowest passing yardage but the highest rushing yards? Come
Say
on.
that again.
Which player on Atlanta's team had the lowest passing yards but the highest rushing yards for that game?
Had the lowest passing yards, but had the highest rushing yards. And
Right.
which game?
The game was last night. It was Felipe Franks.
Oh, Felipe Franks.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
he had 8 yards passing, but 45 yards rushing, and actually had the most rushing yards of anybody on the team. So
Well,
I think he needs to consider going to a different position.
he
And
is.
that's
He's
just me.
playing tight end. He played a lot of tight end in camp.
Yeah, well,
So,
I don't know why they're talking about him like he's a quarterback because unless they just want a third person up there just in case.
well, he's had some moments in camp where he has done really well at quarterback, and he's had a lot of good moments in camp as a tight end. And Felipe Franks, came over from the SEC.
Yeah,
I believe he played at Arkansas.
he did. He did.
This is what your third string quarterback is in this league. And between Ritter and Mariota, unless one of them or each of them get injured, Felipe Franks is not playing quarterback. But the fact is, he really can help out in the passing game in another tight end set. To me, this is a positive. He should make the team.
Yeah, well, unless they want to pull some trick plays or something and have him out there along with Mariota or something.
That's possible. I mean, that's possible in a
Yeah,
pass.
but as soon as you see Felipe Franks lining up in the backfield with either Ritter or Mariota, then you're going to automatically, if you're on top of your game on defense, you'll notice that and know to expect something.
Well, that's correct. Maybe they will. He could be a decoy. They could put him into where they could run a reverse or even a double reverse for that
Yeah,
matter. Or they could stick him in the backfield and pitch the ball to him. He could throw it downfield. I mean, there's a lot of ways they could incorporate Felipe Franks into this offense.
yeah.
The
Hey,
Falcons.
I saw that your Lions did pretty well this past week.
They did. They did. I mean, they did exactly what they did in game one. They were able to run the football, and with 3 first-round draft choices on that offensive line, I was extremely pleased. They gave away the game to the Falcons in game one. That turnover just did it. They had the game won. If they don't turn the football over, they win it. But it is preseason. It was one of the backup quarterbacks, but what happens if something happens to Jared Goff and you've got to play your backup quarterback, and that the Lions they have a competition between Tim Boyle and David Blau for the backup quarterback position, and from what I understand, Tim right now is in the lead. Tim Boyle is for the backup quarterback position in Detroit. Of course, the Lions, they've made a lot of headlines, especially Dan Campbell and his interesting words about biting kneecaps and all that. But that was an introduction press conference. But if you watched Dan Campbell here on Hard Knocks on HBO Hard Knocks, I'm really impressed with the Lions. I think they've got a shot to make the playoffs. I don't know if they will make it. I boldly put on Twitter that they will make it just because I did it. So, but Detroit, like I said, 3 first-round draft choices on the offensive line, led by Taylor Decker. They can run the football. They have a plethora of backs. If they can run the football and play action pass with Gerald Goff, they have 2 excellent wide receivers. They've got a chance if they can keep that defense off the field. If they can do that, then they've got a chance. They're in a tough division. I mean, Green Bay's sitting there. Minnesota's pretty good. We don't know a whole lot about the Bears. I mean, it's just like the Falcons division. They're sitting there. They'll have Tampa Bay in front of them. New Orleans is a rival. Carolina is a rival.
Yeah, and I think Carolina has solidified their quarterback situation, and looks like they're going to go with Mayfield, from what I understand.
That's correct. Baker Mayfield will make the start there. The former Cleveland Browns quarterback there. He'll make the start, and that's one of the headlines. Of course, Cleveland, we know their situation. So at quarterback,
it's Joshua Dobbs, in my opinion.
It is. It's going to be Joshua Dobbs, and he'll play the first 11 games of the season before Deshaun Watson comes off his suspension. And ironically, the first game he'll start, the Houston Texans, his former club. To me, that's more than a coincidence, but that's another story for another day. That's kind of how the drama is going to ensue in Cleveland. But the fans in Cleveland, Wayne, they really gave him an awful greeting. They booed him very much so in that first preseason game. And, Deshaun Watson hasn't played football in 2 seasons. And he's not going to play in the first 11 games. The only time he's going to play football is in these preseason games. And I'm telling you right now, he'll have to be, there's no question he's going to be rusty coming in the first game when he plays the Texans when it counts. And look, this hurts Cleveland Browns playoff chances in the AFC North greatly.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be quite Tim Tebow rusty though.
I don't know if he's going to be Tim Tebow rusty either, but just think though that's 2 years without playing. That's a
Right.
long time. I mean, he's young, he's gifted, but there's nothing like game speed. He can get all the reps he wants in practice, but when you're suspended, you can't even be around the team.
Yeah. Well,
So,
now, if I were to take off of my Atlanta Falcons fan cap for a little while, I would honestly say that I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be the teams with the most motivation to do well this season. And right now, it looks like they are headed for the Super Bowl simply because I feel like they got a chip on their shoulder and they're looking to see who wants to try and knock it off.
well, in Kansas City, to me, it just comes down to the offensive line being able to protect Patrick Mahomes. Um, I mean, this is without a doubt what it comes down to for me. They're going to have to get better defensively, but they have got to protect Patrick Mahomes, and teams are coming after him.
Yeah. Well, that's evident last year with Buffalo. So,
Well, speaking of Buffalo, they're the favorite. A lot of people have
wow.
them the favorite in the AFC. With a lot of people have the favorite. I mean,
I,
they're
I
going to
hope
be a handful.
I hope they don't let that go to their heads because that would be not such a good thing for that team. I think they need to play hungry instead of play safe.
We'll find out. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in the AFC. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not Buffalo. It's just not Kansas City. There's Cleveland. Look at the Colts. Now they have Matt Ryan, the former Falcon. He's their number one guy at quarterback. This is the best depth and best roster that the Browns have had. I mean, excuse me, the Colts have had in quite some time. So, there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. You're going to hear from Baltimore. I don't. We'll see. There's just a lot of really good teams in the AFC. A lot of contenders. We can flip the script and talk the NFC. We mentioned Tampa Bay and Green Bay, Dallas. We'll see what they can do. Dallas has got a lot of talent.
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of talent every year, but they seem to figure out a way not to be able to use it well.
Well, I mean, look at the playoff how they lost. They could have won that ball game against San Francisco last year, and Dak Prescott decided to run the football, and then they didn't get up as a team to spike it and stop it, and it was an entire mess how that game ended. But Dallas has a lot of talent. They do. They have a lot of talent, and you can't count Dallas out. Of course, you can't count out the defending champions, the Los Angeles Rams, led by former Lion, thank you, Matthew Stafford. And look at the San Francisco Giants with the San Francisco 49ers with the one of the best defenses in football. And they really should have won that game last year in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. They had that ball game won and they let it get away. Or they could have been in the Super Bowl, and that would have been one heck of a matchup. So, I mean, look, the NFL of all the leagues, Wayne, is the most unpredictable and wide open. There's always 4 or 5 teams that made the playoffs from the previous year that don't make it the next year. And then there are 4 or 5 teams that didn't make the playoffs the previous year, and they end up making it. So, that's the way the cookie crumbles. There's so much parity in the NFL that this is where you get this shift every year, and you really don't get it in Major League Baseball a whole lot. You'll get a little bit of a shift. The NHL, you will, but there's more teams that make the NHL playoffs than the NFL, even though the NFL is working on catching the NHL. They keep adding teams. Major League Baseball, I mentioned, pro basketball. There's not a lot of change from year to year like there is in the NFL, without question.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it'll be an exciting NFL season. The final preseason games are coming up. Some teams will play their start, like the Lions are going to play all their starters, but golf. They're going to sit him, and I can understand why they do. They can't afford to lose him. If they lose him, big trouble.
Who is the backup? Who is the backup for Detroit?
Tim Boyle, David Blau.
Okay, yeah, for some reason that skipped my mind.
All right. Let me, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and take a break. And we'll be right back here on ATL Prime Sports. We should have Tim Brando coming up. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. We have Tim Brando here of Fox Sports here on ATL Prime Sports, one of the best broadcasters in the business, if not the best broadcaster in the business. And Tim, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to talk college football and college basketball with you. This is really this is an exciting time of the year in college football, and really appreciate you coming on.
Happy to do it. I just I apologize for not checking to see if I could have joined you visually as well, but I guess this will do.
This is perfect. It's okay. Hey, that's okay. Let's talk some college football conference realignment. Do you think the Power Five will separate from the FBS, creating 3 levels of D1 in college football? And two, when do you think the college football playoff will expand? I know there's a lot of things to unpack here.
Yeah, there are a lot to attack. Whether the FBS would include or whether the Power Five in breaking away from the NCAA with the way they're going to govern themselves, whether that's going to include the Group of Five, I still think that's up for debate. I still think we have not gotten to that part of the conversation just yet. I know there's a lot of speculation about it. I don't believe that we're not sure if we're going to have 4 power conferences or 5, or that we might have 3. I mean, there's still room for a lot of movement as you and I are discussing things tonight in real live time. I mean, the possibilities are that the Big Ten could still exercise the opportunity and the right to advance to 20 teams instead of 16. If that were to happen, and let's presume hypothetically that those teams would be Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and California. If that were to happen, then I think it's reasonable to assume that wheels would be in motion for the Big 12 then to go out and grab Utah, Colorado, and Arizona State. So what does that leave the Pac-12 with? And it's their television contract that's up now. You know, George Kliavkov's got to be working the phone pretty hard, the commissioner. And there are some steps that they can take, whether they lose those 4 additional schools or not. But I think big picture, to your point, the fact that the college football playoff is now taking a look, big picture, at changing governance and control, meaning those teams that are a part of the college football playoff, those teams and those leagues are the power leagues. And if they were to choose to do that, that would not restrict those schools that are in the Group of Five from getting opportunities to play against the Power Five, but it could change potentially the access that they may have, and whether that would mean that there's going to be a separate division or separate governance. You know, I don't know. I do know this. I think the NCAA is done with Division I college football. They can run the FCS. They can run NAIA Division II and III. They can run the men's basketball tournament, which is the reason why they're in existence, and the women's basketball tournament, and all the other non-revenue producing sports championships. They can do all of that. But Division I college football, simply put, has outgrown the NCAA. And the NCAA did this to themselves by kicking the can down the curb for 15 years on NIL and putting Division I college football in this predicament that we currently have with unrestricted free agency and no salary cap, with the combination of NIL and the transfer portal. So this is all good news, I think, in many respects, because the NCAA should have been the hell out of college football from the moment they lost the rights to negotiate their television contract, which happened almost 40 years ago in the Supreme Court case brought by the universities of Georgia and Oklahoma. So if you've listened to me through the years, you've followed my opinions on college football, you know that this is something that I've been pining for probably 30 years or more. And I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of reasons to be enthused about the future of college football now that we know that the NCAA is no longer going to be a part of it.
Speaking of the NIL, what is it going to look like when it's all said and done and organized? Because right now it's not organized, but it is working. The kids are getting their compensation, which they fully deserve. But what is it going to look like?
Well, I do think that it is working, and it's not regulated, and that's a problem. But it's working that the men and women, and I shouldn't mention women because you've probably seen where gymnasts are making $1 million deals now. and that's a great thing because they deserve it too. And if you've ever been to a college campus, especially during basketball season, and the gymnastics team has got control of the big arena, and the basketball team is practicing in another facility on campus, and I've done that. I've gone to these campuses to prepare for basketball games and seen this. You know that women's gymnastics is incredibly popular and is doing very well, along with women's volleyball and women's basketball and women's softball. So, yeah, there are companies that are helping streamline for a number of athletic departments what's going on with NIL. But there are some, we'll, for lack of a better term, we'll call them renegade companies that are operating outside the purview of the schools. And that's a byproduct of, the wild, wild west that the NCAA left collegiate athletics with when they did nothing about NIL when they were sued by Ed O'Bannon 15 years ago. So, again, we owe the debt of thanks for all this to the NCAA. I believe what's going to happen, Todd, is this. We're going to see, as college football gets itself together and realignment is closer to being finished than it is right now, I think we're going to see the leaders of college football, and at the very top of that list, we'll put Greg Sankey of the SEC and Kevin Warren of the Big Ten, but all the other commissioners too. I think you're going to see them go after the midterms in November. You're going to see them go to Capitol Hill and begin to lobby for some action to be done on Capitol Hill for the benefit of streamlining and regulating, maybe even in a bipartisan way. There's some discussion underway right now about Tommy Tuberville, the former Auburn coach and Texas Tech and Cincinnati coach, talk about his involvement with Joe Manchin in a bipartisan bill that they'd like to see passed into law. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but I do know that it's at least getting the conversation on the table amongst both Republicans and Democrats in Washington. When the midterms are over and the likelihood of one party having control of both the House and Senate is realized, I think the chances are very good that you could see a regulatory commission put together for federal legislation to allow this commission to streamline what's going on so that we don't have situations where collectibles are actually inducements to procure talent from one school to another. That's what's got to be eliminated. No one has a problem with players receiving benefits financially. No one does. But the coaches and really the game itself, not just coaches, but the game itself, players, everyone involved in intercollegiate athletics does not want this to be a bidding process in recruiting. And that's what's got to be eliminated. And I think that getting Congress involved will help get that taken care of. And if people have a problem hearing that, I get it, okay? The only thing less popular than a lawyer or president is Congress. But we've been put in this position again by the NCAA when they didn't do anything. And you've got situations where some state laws are different to the advantage of said school over another said school within the same conference. And once that has happened, then the genie's out of the bottle. And there's nothing you can do about it unless you get federal legislation accomplished. And I think that's the direction they're going to go in. But it is going to take some time. And like I said, we'll have to probably get towards the end of the year, towards the new calendar year before we'll see any of this realized. But I believe that most of what's going on in name, image, and likeness is actually good rather than bad. You're just not hearing about the good. And the bad is salacious. It's sensational. It's good copy to sell not newspapers, but to get clicks on websites,
Right.
And get viewership on television. So I think we're headed in the right direction there. It's just you got to wade through a lot of minutia to see that.
Well, I tell you what. One last question, then I want to go to football because this is the college football weekend. We're going to have a weekend till mid-January, so I can't wait to get this part over with. Sort of. I know there was a big $7 billion deal that the Big Ten is splitting with Fox, CBS, and NBC Sports. And now Notre Dame is sort of the domino in there. Where does Notre Dame end up, in your opinion? Do they end up as independent, or are they in a conference? Because apparently the new Big Ten TV deal provides specific payouts if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten the next 7 years, and that could give Notre Dame more leverage with NBC or the ACC, or give Notre Dame more incentive to join the Big Ten after it's done with the ACC when their deal runs out. Boy, there's a lot of dominoes here. But the great thing is for Fox, CBS, and NBC, it's free. It's on free TV, and it's all, and you've got prime time. And boy, I bet the SEC is going, wait, we should have done this, but we didn't. And did it. And you're part of it. You're a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, let me say this: having been a part of the SEC on CBS for 18 years, and 16 of those years I was hosting the College Football Today. This really all began when Missouri and Missouri and Texas A&M came into the league. When Missouri and Texas A&M came into the SEC, the conference wanted additional revenues, and ESPN was glad to do that because they were in the midst of putting together a cable network for the Southeastern Conference. So they had no problem with it. My old boss, still the chairman of CBS Sports, Sean McManus, he was like, well, we're only doing one game. So the additions of Missouri and Texas A&M are really of no value to us because we only do the one game. If you have control of the entire conference, yes, it's of greater value. Well, that was not met very well by the folks in Birmingham. And they definitely wanted, and understandably so. I mean, I get that. The deal that Mike Oresco, now the commissioner of the American Conference, had put together was a tremendous long-term deal. I think it was 15 years maybe at the time when the deal was done, back in 2010 or so. And it was for $55 million a year. Well, I mean, look around. You've seen the numbers bandied about of late. It's worth 5 times that now. So CBS is still reaping the benefit of that financially in a contract that has 2 more years left on it. So that was the reason why ESPN got in there early. And I don't know why they decided to do this, but it was just their business decision. Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, decided that I gather because of the relationship with ESPN and the fact that they were already invested in doing a full-fledged cable network for them. And it was very successful, no doubt about it. The launch was, I think, the biggest launch in the history of cable in terms of the number of subscribers they had at launching. He decided to give the next deal, the next rights for the 3:30 Eastern window, 2:30 Central. He decided to not put it up for bid and just give it to ESPN for a price. And this was done almost 3 years ago, back in 2019, and got $300 million for it. So the package that CBS is doing right now and will do for this year and another year is worth $300 million. They're paying $55 million for it. So CBS knew it was going to lose the SEC. They needed to replace it. Their affiliates certainly want college football. So I'm encouraged with the fact that they're staying in the business. When I left and went to Fox, I really did believe there was a very good chance that CBS would be getting out of the college football business. And I was almost right. I mean, if this deal had not come up for them with the Big Ten, I think they may have been out of the college football business. But I'm encouraged that they decided to stay in it, albeit with the Big Ten, and they're actually going to be paying $50 million more, at least according to reports, than they would have had to pay to hold on to the SEC 3:30 window. But again, I look at what ESPN did, and the Southeastern Conference actually initiated it. They wanted to do the deal early, long before the contract was up. And ESPN jumped in, gave them $300 million, but that was in 2019. Who knows what the SEC might have gotten had they allowed the contract to run through 25, and they had decided to negotiate maybe next year, a year after the Big Ten. But they didn't, and it was not bid for. It was not. None of the other networks got the bid on this. It was just a wink and a nod and an agreement between ESPN and the SEC to do what they did. Fox, which controls the Big Ten network, owns 60% of it. They're a different company, and they operate differently, obviously. And the Big Ten's relationship with Fox is such that they wanted Fox to help consult and head the direction of the bidding process. So when Fox got the initial contract, control of the contract, it was my bosses, and their superiors that were handling the negotiations with all the other networks that were bidding for the Big Ten. and it worked out tremendously for them to get both CBS and NBC to carry live games on linear TV to go along with Fox. That means you're going to have college football from the Big Ten on 3 free over-the-air networks from noon until almost midnight every weekend. And it's really a blueprint of sort of what the NFL model is,
right?
If you look at it. And I think the more networks are involved, the more free games available to the consumer, the better the product, frankly. And it's not as if they won't have streaming, because they will. Peacock is going to be involved through the NBC deal. CBS will also use their app, I believe that's Paramount, to stream the CBS game when it's on. So you'll be able to get the games on your phone as well as on your free network television at home. And And of course, Fox is doing what it's doing, and FS1 and the Big Ten Network will get a lot of games as well. So it's great for the consumer, no question about it. And regardless of what ESPN and the SEC did, it was still very smart, I think, of ESPN to jump in and do what they did. For the Southeastern Conference, it was probably, I'm just thinking out loud here, I'm thinking Greg Sankey was saying to himself, I want to get this done, and I want to do business with the people I already know. And
right.
So he just decided to do it a more convenient way, and it worked out for them. And, of course, the SEC is, from a product standpoint and from a success standpoint in the last 20 years, it's been the best conference in football. So they did what they felt was the right thing. But I think what happened here with the Big Ten and with Fox especially was it was a statement by the league and by Fox to some extent that they want to see their portfolio grow. They want to see college football grow. And I believe it's the beginning, really, Todd, of the college football playoff, first and foremost, expanding. And when I say expanding, not just with teams being invited to be a part of the college football playoff, whether it be 12 teams or 16 teams, doesn't matter. We're talking about more inclusion. And I also think in the new television contract with the college football playoff, you're going to see multiple networks involved, whether that's just Fox and ESPN or if it's Fox, ESPN, ABC, NBC, and CBS. It could be all of them, okay? It really could. And if that were, in fact, the case, again, I think that is moving in the right direction. College football has always been the second most popular live TV sport out there, and now they're going to be paid like it. They've left a lot of money. They, meaning the leaders of universities and college football, have left a lot of money on the table with TV. And now I think at long last, they're finally finding out how much they're really worth. That's a long-winded answer, but I think it encompasses everything that you were asking.
Well, thank you so much. We're here with Tim Brando, Fox Sports, here on ATL Prime Sports. Toe meets leather this week. We finally have some football. We'll have it every weekend until mid-January for some college football. And how do you see the Power Five shaking out? Who do you see in the playoff, and why? Give me a sleeper that could make the playoff, and give me a team that is overrated in each conference. I know that's a three-part question, but I thought that all in there.
Well, you're not making my answers. My answers are running long because your questions are three-parters.
Yep. Okay.
Listen, we got time here, so we can do this. My top 10 I put out a little bit more than a month ago, and my top 10 preseason is always about where I believe teams will finish, not where they deserve to start. The best, in my opinion, the two best group of five teams are Fresno State and Houston. And I decided to put Houston in the 10th spot as a result. I don't think they're going to lose a game. Dana Holgerson's bringing back a lot of that team that pushed Cincinnati a bit last year in the American, and they'll be going to the Big 12 next year. As a matter of fact, I'll have a game with Spencer Tillman week 2, September 10th, in Lubbock against Texas Tech and Houston. And that's going to be a whale of a football game and sort of a preview of what a Big 12 early season matchup might look like in 2023. Number 9, I got Michigan. I think the Wolverines will be very competitive, finish 10-2 in the regular season. I don't know who besides Ohio State will beat them, but I do think they may slip. Possibly Michigan State will beat them. But I've got Michigan 9. Notre Dame I've got in the 8 hole. I think that after they lose their first game to Ohio State, I think they'll learn from that and improve and probably get through the season with only one more loss. Where that comes, who knows? But I like Notre Dame in the 8 hole. I've got a sleeper pick nationally in the 7th position, North Carolina State. I think they're going to go into Clemson and beat them. in early October. I love their secondary. They've got two of the best cover corners in the game, and I think Dave Doran has just done a tremendous job, and they get no love in their part of the country, partly because it's basketball country, partly because the ACC is not considered a good league, but I do think NC State's a very good team. Oklahoma, I've got 6. I've got the Sooners 6. I've got Utah 5, and I toiled at long length over whether to go with Utah at 4 or at 5. I finally decided to go at 5 because I think there's a better chance for Utah to slip than the next team that I've got in the 4 position, and that's Baylor. I think Baylor's going to win the Big 12. I think they may win every game. They will get an early test on the road, which will really help them, I think, against BYU. That's the second week of the season when they play there. They do have to go to Norman on November the 5th, but they've been successful in Norman before, has Baylor. I just think Dave Aranda's team is ready to go. Got a new quarterback, Blake Shapen, who grew up in my hometown. I saw him in high school. He's the nephew of the great golfer Hal Sutton, who was a former Ryder Cup captain back in 2004. Number 3 is Georgia. I think the Bulldogs are still separated from the rest of the pack. I think that Kirby's just done too good a job in terms of recruiting for them to slip, even with the losses they have on the defensive side of the ball. And you know what? Say what you want about Stetson Bennett, but he's a returning starter at quarterback, and that matters. It matters a lot to Kirby. I know it matters to any coach who's got a returning starter that's had some success. Number 2, I'm going with Alabama. I think the Crimson Tide will probably be on cruise control for most of the season, but I do think they've got a couple of potential hiccups that they could lose, like last year, okay, when they lost in that wild one at College Station against Texas A&M. I think going to LSU and going to Ole Miss on the 5th and the 12th will be spots where you need to watch out for potential landmines if you're Alabama. And I also think that Arkansas is a team that could give them a hard time. Keep an eye on Sam Pittman's team. They are a bit of a sleeper in the SEC, and they play them at Fayetteville. Ohio State, I've got number 1. I think the Buckeyes offensively are a juggernaut, and I think the acquisition of Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State, who was tremendous a year ago. I saw that team a bunch. He is a great DC, and I think that he'll make a big, big difference in the Buckeyes defense. So that's my top 10. Just outside of it, I've got Ole Miss, I've got A&M, I've got Oklahoma State, I got Kentucky, I got LSU and USC. I think that a couple of teams that you can keep an eye on that you maybe haven't thought about in certain conferences. By example, in the ACC, where I talked about NC State being a national sleeper. Wake Forest is just Dave Clawson is a great coach, and Wake never gets any love. So keep an eye on that team. In the Big 12, we touched on, my love for Baylor. Certainly, Oklahoma State is a team that you can always sort of plug into the top 25. But Kansas State, getting Martinez, the transfer from Nebraska, with Deuce McAllister returning in the backfield, K-State's going to be a real spoiler in the Big 12. They have had tremendous success against Texas, by example, that they have routinely beaten at home. They lost their last matchup to them, but they are a really tough out this year. I think Kleiman's got a very good team. In the Southeastern Conference, we touched on Ole Miss, but I think Mississippi State, with a healthy Will Rogers, who's a difference maker at the quarterback position, could be a real problem and maybe upset some people that don't anticipate losing to Mississippi State. I mentioned about Alabama. They also have to go to start Vegas this year, and that's another potential problem spot for them. Out west, no one is considering either Cal or Stanford being any good. But this year they're going to be good. And watch for that USC game at Stanford on September the 10th, because I think that's where one of the most overrated teams in the country will get spanked. I think Stanford beats SC week 2, and I think there's a very good chance that Fresno State can push USC in week 3. There's some teams out west that are really upset about what happened with UCLA and USC, and they're ready to take it out on the Trojans. And I think USC, even though Lincoln Riley's got a lot of great transfers, and certainly with the quarterback Caleb Williams coming over from Oklahoma, there's reason for optimism. But to be penciling this team in as a potential playoff team, come on, no way is that team going to be able to do it. Talking about overrated, Texas is routinely overrated, and people believe that they are a team worthy of being even in the top 15 or top 10 this year. You got to be kidding me. No way. They could lose a lot of games after Bama rips them apart in week 2. And they got to go, by example, to West Virginia, to Morgantown, the week before the Red River. I mean, the week before the Red River rivalry, they are on the road to Morgantown. That's not easy. Then they have to play Iowa State before going, on the road to play Oklahoma State. And I think the Cowboys are better than Texas. No question. They've been better than Texas for a while. And then I mentioned a little earlier the problems they've had routinely with Kansas State. Well, November the 5th, they play at K-State too. So Ewers better be all that if Texas is going to make a move. Those are the ones that jump out as being overrated in those leagues. But the most overrated team in the country is A&M because of their great recruiting class and because of the love that Jimbo's gotten from a lot of people for taking on Nick Saban in the offseason with that back and forth feud that they had while I was at the beach. The notion that you won the recruiting race doesn't automatically mean that you're a champion to be. Just ask Charlie Weiss. He had a number 1 recruiting class at Notre Dame, and that team went 9-3. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be. It's likely going to be Max Johnson, the LSU transfer, who, by the way, beat A&M with arguably one of the worst 6-6 LSU teams we've seen in quite some time. The Aggies are loaded with talent, but it's all young, and they have never been able to sustain a degree of success, even under Jimbo, in the time that he's been there. They had the one great year just on the outside looking in during the COVID season, but, I mean, not much after that. They're going to get there eventually, but they're really overrated this year. I could name, well, I already have, Kentucky, Arkansas,
what about
potentially all teams that can beat A&M this year.
How about Clemson?
What was that?
How about Clemson?
I don't think they're, I think Clemson is still, because of what they've accomplished, they are worthy of being in the conversation, but they're certainly not worthy of being in the top 4 or 5. That was an omission. Clemson's overrated this year, but I don't think I can jump on their being overrated because of any trends that they've had in recent years. One bad year doesn't mean that you're no longer a national program. Clemson's still very much a national program. For me, teams like USC, Texas A&M, we routinely have made them pretenders. Clemson has been a real contender for quite some time. I believe they're overrated, but I don't put them in the same class of being overrated as I would the other schools.
Our producer here, Wayne, he's dying to get to college basketball. He's a huge college basketball fan. So I'm like, he cannot wait to ask you a college basketball question. I better let him do it before he cuts my mic.
No, I'm not going to cut anybody's mic, but I actually think we can save basketball till when basketball becomes a little bit more relevant this year. And I'm just going to hit you with a few teams that I think are sleepers
Okay.
overall in each conference. I think in the my team is Memphis Tigers, and in the American Conference, the entire conference is just sleeper. So I'll put that out there.
No,
In
no
the S,
question. You're right
yeah,
about that. Memphis
in
is really good. I love Houston, and I don't think Luke Fickell's team is going to drop that much.
yeah.
I mean, I really don't.
Well,
I
some of
mean,
the other,
those are teams. Those are teams. Obviously, a lot of them are headed to the Big 12. But yeah, Memphis is. They're still explosive, and have been explosive for quite some time.
yeah, the other sleepers I think are going to be South Carolina and Purdue.
Yeah, yeah, two good ones. Both with great offensive coaches. I'm not as high on Rattler as others are. I saw him, quite a bit in the Big 12, but I do think in the SEC and at that program with what Shane Beamer's got going on, I think it could be a great address change for him. Purdue's got an unbelievably positive schedule in that they don't have to play either Ohio State or Michigan, and they're in the Big Ten West, which I think gives them a competitive advantage to win that always competitive division. We went down to the end of the year last 2 weeks with Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa all in the thick of it. And ultimately, Minnesota helped Iowa get to the Big Ten championship by beating Wisconsin at home on Thanksgiving weekend. But Purdue this year, I think, is capable of beating at least two of those three teams. And you're right. That's a great call. He's a hell of a coach, too. And don't be surprised if you wake up in early November and they're, 7-1 or 8-0.
Yeah.
Well, they upset Michigan State last year. I'm going to go ahead and switch to basketball. Speaking of Michigan State, Tom Izzo signed an extension. He's a Spartan for life. I'm thrilled about it. I'm from the state of Michigan. A lot of folks thought he was going to call it quits due to NIL. He did the exact opposite, and their recruiting class is pretty good this year, but next year it's outstanding, and I'm betting he makes a run before he's all done, and maybe he wins it all second time.
Let me tell you something about Tom Izzo. He's probably I've been at this a long time. He and I are the same age. I knew him when he was an assistant, running around in airports recruiting for Judd Heathcote. And there's no better friend to Tim Brando that's in the coaching profession of any sport than Tom Izzo. And Tom will wear his, a little bit like me. If you ask him how he's feeling, he'll really tell you. He won't just say, good, and you, thanks. He'll say, well, to be honest with you, I had a horrible week, and then he'll begin to tell you, what happened. There are a lot of times during the course of a season when, frustrations can build up and Tom can appear as though he's frazzled and maybe had enough. And I think that was one of the reasons why people were beginning to think that. But let me tell you something about this guy. He knew and still does know all the major players financially at Michigan State. And while he was upset that the whole NIL thing was new to him, and all the coaches of this generation and his generation, Roy, Coach K, even Jay Wright, bowing out at age 60. All these guys just were thinking, you know what? I don't know that I want to go through this. But Tom, he's a lifer. You meet coaches every now and then that are lifers, and he's one of them. Nick Saban's the same way. And both of those guys are really good friends. They talk all the time. Tom was really upset with a lot of those major players financially and with his administration, frankly, at Michigan State when they let Nick Saban slip through their fingers. Nick was making inroads, but he had not become the big kahuna yet. You know, he had some success with Michigan, but you know, he had gotten them up to, I think, about 8-3. You know, in that neighborhood. Actually played in the Independence Bowl in my hometown against Jerry Gennardo's LSU team and got whipped pretty good. I believe that was the 97 season or the 96 season and coming into 97, somewhere in there. But Tom felt like they really, you know, screwed up. That letting somebody like Saban go meant that they were going to have to start over. And, you know, he really takes it seriously what goes on between Michigan and Michigan State. So when Mel Tucker got there and had the great success that he did, I think Tom was heavily involved with a lot of the same people and said, you know what, if you guys don't step up and financially take care of Mel Tucker, you're going to lose another great coach. And he's going to go someplace else and make you look bad, just like Nick Saban did when he went to LSU. And and those people listen to Tom, you know. And a lot of those people are the same ones that are ponying up for him that ponied up for Mel Tucker. And that just shows you how much love Tom's got, not just for his job, but for where he is coaching. It's not just coaching, but it's coaching at Michigan State, you know, that matters to him. He turned that thing into a blue blood program in college basketball, but he's still a football guy. Everybody knows he's the perfect team guy for college athletics because you're never going to have an issue with Tom, no matter how big the football coach is or how much the football coach makes. Tom's all in because he's a Michigan State guy before he's a basketball guy, you know, and people there know that. And I'm really glad that he's going to stay because it means that as long as I'm still doing this, I'm going to be seeing a lot of Tom during the course of my winter. And a lot of times, especially in mid-February, when it's really cold outside, you want to be seeing guys you really like on the road. And I really like Tom Izzo.
That's correct. That is correct. One last question, got to let you go. Does the NCAA tournament, does it expand?
I hope it doesn't now. I think it will eventually. I saw what Sankey was saying, the SEC commissioner, about it. They talked about this before when they went to 68. You know, there was discussion about 92 back then. And I think that's probably still on the docket. It's probably something still being discussed. But frankly, I think that it's really been so successful with this number that we need to keep it there for a little bit longer. However, given what's going on in football, all right, and the fact that football's separation, in my view, is imminent from the NCAA, and trust me when I tell you, football has been separate financially for a long time. All right, ever since that '84 lawsuit, college football's always, all the numbers, all the monetary impact has not been felt at the NCAA since then. But that men's basketball tournament and what it's worth has been what's lined the pockets of everyone in Indianapolis at those offices for years and years. And this is the golden goose, and they need to protect it and make sure that it continues to grow and has no slippage. And I think it's vital that they make sure that they are the guardians for their own game. You know, they need to do that. If we go to 92, it's really only going to mean one more week. So in terms of what it would do, it would give more inventory to the Turner and CBS people, which maybe they want, you know, for what they paid for years ago in terms of the rights fees for the NCAA tournament. But I don't know that America is going to be that enthused about 92 or having an additional week to the NCAAs. I personally believe that college basketball has been starting too early and that the season is too long. A lot of these made-for-TV tournaments during the holidays have extended seasons and really made it long and tumultuous for coaches and players. I do think NIL is helping. I mean, when you look at Kentucky, for instance, getting to keep Oscar Tshiebwe, they're keeping him because of NIL. That's wonderful. I think we'll see more players staying in college basketball longer because of NIL, and that's a really good thing. It really is. But I think that we should end the men's NCAA tournament after the Masters, not before. I think the season starts too early and ends too early. It's obstructed by the National Football League all the way now through February. I mean, the regular season, you know, they get no love from the national media during the regular season, really, until the conference tournaments get underway. I would love to see the March. You can call it March Madness, but there's nothing wrong with it ending in April. I think with Turner paying 80% of the freight in their deal with CBS, I don't think it should matter that the Masters has to be after the NCAA tournament. I really don't. Matter of fact, I think a combination of the Masters and the NCAAs at some point being on simultaneously would be great. I don't think it would be a bad thing at all. But we're asking a lot of these players to start practicing in October and then to have their seasons end when it does. I just think it's a shame. You know, they're playing through the holidays. They're being asked to do so much more than really any other student athlete, if you really want to use that term. I like to just say players, not student athletes. But the reality is the money that is derived from that tournament is huge, and it's what's keeping not just people don't realize this, but not just the big schools getting cash, but it is what allows small liberal arts colleges to have Division I programs. It funds those very programs, many of them, and that's a wonderful thing. And so it needs to be successful. It also needs to grow. If they decide to go to 92, I won't be that upset about it, but I wish they would, at the very least, let's not have college basketball to worry about until after we get through all of college football in the regular season, not the postseason. But let's not have basketball games being played in Alaska or Hawaii while we still have, you know, Thanksgiving weekend of college football underway. That's what I have a problem with. I
agree with you 100%. Tim, thanks so much for coming on. Gosh, I can remember Michigan State basketball because I'm in my mid to upper 50s. Judd Heathcote, watching it on the black and white, trying to, you know, stay up at night. My mom trying to send me to bed, watching Magic Johnson, Greg Kelser, Terry Berkovich. I mean, I could just go on and on with Michigan State basketball. And Tom, as you know, was assistant with Judd. And golly, I'm glad that he signed on. And if it goes to 92 games, so be it. If not, it's probably better. I was shocked when you gave me the number 92. I thought it might have been a number in between, but now you said it, an extra week. It makes a lot of sense. And it does. And look, I love the game. I love the people in it. And, it's a good, I'm 66 now, and Tom's 67. And whenever I go out, I love meeting the young coaches. A lot of the coaches are guys that were players. You know, I called their games, and now they're coaching. Most of them are. But Tom, guys like Tom Izzo that are still in it,
I'm not going to lie to you. It means a lot to me to run into these guys. We've had great relationships through the years, and they're friends of mine. They're people I talk to when we're out of season. You know, hey, man, what's going on? Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, having a few old school guys out there still makes this old broadcaster feel young, you know. So I appreciate your time.
I appreciate
you guys.
you.
Were a lot of fun to visit with. We'll do it again sometime.
We sure will. We sure will. And I'm going to say, when you come on the next time, I've got a surprise for you. And I'll save that till then because we're out of time.
Okay.
But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Anytime.
Take care. Tim Brando of Sports here on ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here with producer Wayne Ridenhour from Memphis. And Wayne, wow, what an interview. I mean, you want to talk about, you ask him a question, he goes, I think he's the best interview in sports because he'll go into in depth, and he's just incredible, and he's good for sports, not only for broadcasting, but just all around. He's good for sports, Wayne. I mean, he's really fantastic. He's my favorite broadcaster today, and this is the second time we've had him on our show. And you know what I was going to do, Wayne? I was going to ask him about Vanna White because, you know, the Wheel of Fortune and all that, but we just ran out of time. So we'll do that the next time with him. Your thoughts? It was a lot of fun. It went longer than we thought, which is fantastic. No complaints there. And it was terrific, don't you think?
Absolutely. I can't wait to get this up on YouTube and, people will get to see it. And I also want to include some of the links to some other stuff that he's doing in the description below. So when y'all are watching this video, be sure to check that out. He's doing a lot more things than just ESPN. And I want to make sure y'all are aware of that.
Well, what a wonderful person and what a wonderful career. He's been at ESPN. He's made a lot of great friends in the broadcasting business, and God, it's a privilege to know him at least a little bit, and it made our day here on ATL Prime Sports that he got to come and spend with a very busy schedule, spend some time with us. Well, that's it. Thanks a lot for myself, for Wayne and Memphis. Thank you for joining us. We'll be on next week. We'll probably do a Southeastern Conference preview. And also, we'll do a little bit of a Sun Belt preview. Our friend Dave Cohen received an award from Georgia State today. 40 years of broadcasting Georgia State sports. And we'll bring him on next week and talk to him about that also. Well, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week here on ATL Prime Sports. Good night, everybody.